Welcome to Performance Driven Living, the podcast where we question everything. We don't tiptoe around tough topics, we walk right into them. Not to provoke, but to get closer to what's real. You might not agree with everything you hear, and that's okay. The show isn't about being right, it's about being real. These conversations are meant to stretch your thinking, challenge assumptions, and spark something deeper. The views shared are those of our guests and may not reflect those of the host or team. And while we dive deep into health, performance, and transformation, this is not medical advice. Talk to your doctor before making changes to your health or lifestyle. Take what lands, leave what doesn't. But whatever you do, don't stop questioning.
We are here on the Performance Driven Living podcast, and I am joined today by the beautiful and incredibly charismatic Andi Lew.
Oh, Mark, you are such a seamless professional. Keep coming at me with the compliments.
Well, I don't know, because you're like a media-trained television personality, so the fact that I have to go up against you here on a podcast, not that this is a debate or something.
No.
But it definitely is skills being tested, right?
Well, it's not a competition. I have been a TV presenter for decades.
Same.
I started out as a radio host, TV host with lifestyle shows in Australia, moved to America about 3 years ago as an extraordinary talent. That was my visa title. And
it's amazing.
Isn't it amazing? Because I have
I want to read this, but before you go any further, you can't let you introduce yourself because my team does this amazing job doing these setups.
Yes, and you've got a good team.
The things that they put together about the guests, I wish they talked about me this way. So this is what they said about you.
Okay.
You were an international wellness expert, best-selling author, and vibrant voice in the longevity movement. From TV screens to biohacking stages, Andi has made it her mission to empower people to live longer, healthier, and sexier lives naturally. She's here to talk about connection, cellular health, conscious living, and the radical power of self-love. Andi, welcome to the show.
You see, this is why you're the man. Seriously, you sound so good. It's a bit Graham Norton vibes right now.
No, that's Casey Kasem.
Oh, yeah.
I'm doing the top 40 countdown.
You are? No, seriously, Mark, when we met, I was just like, I love this guy. We have so many values that are very aligned with what we want to do with making the country healthier.
Yes.
So we met at Maha Spring Gala. And, I'm just a fan of your work. I think it's the Mutual Admiration Society right now.
My goodness. I walked, so that's funny. So Bridget Rasmussen had invited me to go to that event. And I think Bridget is everybody's speed dial.
Yeah.
And it's just so funny because she's so networked. And I walked in, I'm like, all right, I don't know anybody. And she's like, here, meet Andi. And then we just kind of hung out that night, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And then I realized I knew about 12 other people that were there, which is also not a surprise because then, as the night moved on, I knew about 12 more.
I haven't forgotten, though, where we left off, which was we were going to go through each other's dating app profiles, if I may say.
Oh, that's not a bad one.
I've never forgotten. We still need to do that. I don't know if that's a whole nother show, but apart from writing 10 books about health, 2 of them were about dating.
That literally may be what we talk about today then. And I think that would be hilarious. And you need to get your phone. I'm going to grab my phone and I'm going to go figure out what dating app that I was on and show you my profile.
Is this going to get us hitched?
Hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Well, but the thing is, so I laugh because there's been conversation. I talked to Bridget and she's like, I want to create the app Maha Mingle.
There you go.
See, now I just gave it away. Now someone's going to go buy it.
We're going to edit this bit
edit that out. But the reality is I laughed about it. At the same time, I was just like, oh, that's really kind of funny. And I'm like, but no, it actually is very similar because so many of these dating apps are set up. And I remember when eHarmony first came out, right? Dr. Neil Clark Warren.
Yeah.
And it's I remember when that came out and it was just like, wow, that was really cool. But we've got Christian Mingle and you've got, what's the other one that's out there? There's one
Coffee Meets Bagel for the Jews. You've got
that's hilarious.
You've got lots that are making sure that you're in alignment on the first,
Correct.
instance.
Because you have to have that alignment on values with a partner from the word go.
Right.
If you don't, you don't. It's a deal killer. You may have all the physical attraction in the world, but man, if we just don't believe in the same stuff, this is go nowhere.
Well, I always say, so you're hot, what else you got? you know?
There you go. I kind of like that. Look at what she's doing here. But the reality is like we need that type of stuff. And when we walk into, you mentioned the Maha Gala that we had both went to. It's like you walk into a room like that. It's like you could literally just stop and talk to anybody in the room.
Instant connection, because we have the same, belief systems and also what we want to do for the world. So that's what's most important to me is that I left my country of Australia with 2 suitcases, a bag of Lego and a he's 15 now. But back then, that was 3 years ago. And I was just like, I am ready for a mission, a new life in another country that needs me. I'd been touring my 10 health books to America on press tour. And every time I'd come off another live show, the producer would say to my publicist, oh, we need her, and it planted a seed that I needed to be a regular. So we applied for this extraordinary talent visa, got it, and it was just like meant to be. So when I got here and now upon reflection, because that 3-year visa just ended and I just got a renewal like literally last week. That's why I went to Europe to re-enter the country. Isn't it crazy? It's so old fashioned. But as I stepped back in, I was like, I'm really committed to this cause. I don't know why I'm here, but there is this deeper knowing that I am meant to help. So thank you so much for having me on your show on that note.
Yeah, and likewise, in a couple of weeks, I'm actually going to be out in LA and we're going to do yours. And I think that's fantastic. I think the exciting part for me is like we meet like-minded people and I find it to be fascinating, right? Because like there's an energy that we all have. And I think that energy at a values level really, really vibes, right? And I think that's accurate. It's like, so I love that we met in a Maha movement, but there's a couple things that I actually want to mention because I want to actually dig into your life and find out what's going on. I mean, obviously 3 years ago, you decided to come to the States. You just got a new visa renewal. So you're clearly not planning on leaving the States.
Yeah. The government wants me here.
Good. Well, you're an extraordinary talent. We couldn't lose you. But this idea that when did you make a pivot into wanting to be a voice in healthcare?
I probably when I was 5 years old, to be honest with you. Yeah, I just think that we are born into who we are meant to be. And from a Steiner education perspective, which is how my son started out with early education, I knew very clearly that our souls are supposed to be on a particular journey, but through a different education system that's too structured, we pivot those souls into different areas. But if you actually observe that soul, they will show you exactly what they're interested in, and we need to nurture that. So when I was 5, I wasn't necessarily nurtured into it, but I emphatically knew that I was vehemently opposed to drugs. And I knew that, when my father was pushing that sort of pink cough medicine down my throat, and it must have been codeine based or whatever, that I was hallucinating, and I didn't like that out of body feeling. And so I knew from that moment on that there was another way to live and that I didn't want to change who I already was. And so little things came up, throughout my adult life, and it just became more and more evident. And then I found the chiropractic profession, and the philosophy behind that is that the power that made the body heals the body, and that we have an innate intelligence that knows how to heal itself when we give it the right environment. And that is run by our universal intelligence, which is God, or the grand organized design, if you prefer that acronym.
I'm good with God.
Okay. And so God, or something greater than us, not to offend anyone, is running our innate intelligence. It tells our every cell, tissue and organ how to operate like that without having to think about it. And so when we understand that connection, hence the title of my 8th book, Connected. My 8th book is called Connected, A Paradigm Shift in How We View Health. And that's still a bestseller like today, years later. And it's on Audible, by the way. But
did you read it?
Did I read it?
On Audible?
Yeah, it's my voice.
Oh, okay. So I'm definitely going to listen to that.
8 hours.
I love listening to your voice.
Oh, thank you. I'll take it. Yeah. So I think, I've always been on that divine mission of teaching people how to heal naturally and live a greater quality of life naturally.
I love that. And it's like this since you were young. So when your career, obviously you've written 8 books, you've been on this 10 now.
Yeah. Healthcare
journey.
Yeah.
You were a TV personality and a radio personality. Was that a distraction from your time wanting to focus on health, or did you focus on it during that too?
Yeah, it's so funny because people would say, and everyone's got a story or an opinion for you, that, you know, being a TV presenter or a host or whatever is going to be the hardest job in the world. And I remember auditioning for NIDA, which was the National Institute of Dramatic Art. It's where Hugh Jackman came out of and the greats like that. And I got down to the last 10, but they pulled the 10 people into this room and said, now there's a reason you 10 are here in this group. There were 1,000 people here today. We stood out this one guy, Johnny, and said, you stand up, take a look around you, and only 10 of you are going to come through. And that's just life. That's how it's going to be with the acting world and things like that. And so when I was like 17 years old, fresh out of school, and I got pulled into this room of 10, I was like, this is it. You know, I've made it.
Right.
And also, I auditioned with a Shakespeare piece, Macbeth, but I chose to play Macbeth, not Lady Macbeth. And they were like, well, wait, you can't do that. And I'm like, why not? Because back then, in the time, the actors used to, the male actors.
It was men playing women then anyways. Why can't a woman play a man?
I just resonated with his story because she was the overzealous one telling him to commit the murder. And I resonated with him being manipulated. So that was interesting too, right? So I played that so well, but they said, you're all here for a reason. It's because you're really bleeping good. But the other reason is, take a look around you. You're all 17 and we don't take kids. We need you to go out there and live the world, get life experience and come back. And I was like, no, I've had so much life experience. If only you knew what I've been through. And they're like, sorry, that's how we're doing it. Well, guess what happened the following year? They started taking untouched, pure 17-year-olds. So I missed out, and I had this like unhealed trauma going, I have to do this, I have to do this. I was on a mission to only be in the entertainment industry. But then I fell into my own calling of what I always knew was health, but never pursued it. And I had sciatica, and I was actually 10 kilos heavier than what I am now. And it just never went away. I was an aerobics instructor. I was like eating well, but a lot of things weren't functioning well. Mm-hmm. And the same nerve that goes down the leg branches off to the digestive system. So as soon as one chiropractic adjustment opened that sciatic nerve up and allowed everything
You lost the weight.
I lost the weight within like 3 months and I didn't even change anything. If anything, I was actually exercising less.
And you're like, what just happened?
Well, dude, and I never had sciatica ever again.
That's amazing.
So, you know, I became a strong advocate for the chiropractic profession. I won an award in 2009 for my dedication to the profession in public education. To this day, nobody who's not a chiropractor has ever won such an award. And it really whet my appetite for that philosophy on healing naturally and empowering people to understand what those things are, like how to giving the body the right environment to do that.
Right. And the thing is, like, I was talking with somebody earlier and we were talking about this idea of like, if we could only figure out, and we talk about biohacking, we talk about longevity, wellness, like whatever words we want to throw in there, right? Like there's so many synonyms now. And when we talk through this kind of stuff, one of the things that I'm always thinking for is like, we need to not just biohack for the sake of biohacking, but the purpose of hacking is a specific outcome. And the question is like, what is the outcome that we're looking for? And then we reverse engineer to that. Mm-hmm. Because too often I think people aren't calculated about where they're going. And it's like they're just kind of floating around, and wherever the water flows, that's where they end up going. And it's all this very downstream type thinking. And I think about what you're saying. You're like, this is where I wanted to be. And because this is where I was going, I started my inputs back here. I stacked the deck moving in that direction. And I think when you're educating people, even on this, right? Like you're talking about, I wanted to be an entertainer, so I knew I had to go do this stuff first. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to influence health, so I needed to go do this stuff first, right? But it's calculated inputs, but our physiology is the same way.
Well, it's part of the journey, and it's the direction that our soul needs to take. And I always say you're always on the right journey, even if it's the wrong one, because we need to learn from the lessons. And so I ended up merging both loves into a very unique role for myself as a TV presenter and a wellness expert, because what we are born to do, which is what I was saying before, is who we really are and how we're meant to serve. But there will be someone or something that says, oh, you could never do that. In Australia, we have tall poppy syndrome. And it's like, oh yeah? How do you think you're going to do that? or if I couldn't, but in America, it's like more of an abundance mentality. I think it's because of the population. Like you've got 320 something million people here, and however many people there are in California, that's how many people you've got in the entire country of Australia.
Right.
So there's like an abundance mentality here as opposed to the tall poppy syndrome there. But so I felt like, I felt a little bit more American in that way, and I wanted to be here, and then really found the courage to merge those two loves. But in my wellness coaching with others, I found that a human isn't really well until they're doing what they're called to do. But on your reflection of reverse engineering and all that, I always have this saying, it is, if you don't know where you're going, any path will take you there.
Fair. Where there is a whole different question.
Yes.
I was just listening to an interview that was done. I mentioned this on another podcast recently that I love Zach Bush. Do you know Zach Bush?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So
Talent crush.
love him. And
actually, somebody said to me he should write the foreword to your 8th book. So I was in contact with him prior to the pandemic, and we were like DMing each other, and he was like, send it over. But then something happened with his family and he wasn't able to do it. But he's like God when it comes to,
I love him.
Yeah, education.
Absolutely love him. And what's funny is I first got introduced to him at the exact same time that I got introduced to Del Bigtree.
Oh, yeah?
And it was in 2020. And Del did an interview with Zach Bush about how the government, the U.S. government, was responding to COVID. And when he did this interview, I of course, I think you know this, I actually also work in the cardiovascular space, so I'm particularly attuned to anything related to cardiovascular health. And Zach actually, his response to Del, because Del's question was, do you think the government has handled their response to this? Now, this was still in 2020, so it was still under the Trump administration. It was before the election. It was, Trump, whatever. And Zach answered the question in a way that blew me away. And I was like, man, this guy just gets it.
Yeah.
And his answer was, I'm not going to say that an administration did anything right or wrong. He said, what I'm going to say is that the response to COVID isn't the response to what's really going on.
Okay.
And he says, we're treating COVID like a respiratory condition. Mm-hmm. He said, but COVID is a cardiovascular issue. And the reason we're having such high morbidity levels with it is because people who are on ACE inhibitors and other types of antihypertensive drugs are susceptible to COVID affecting the respiratory system. And he said, so what's happening is that the drugs that we're putting people on for their blood pressure is actually binding to the lungs and weakening the lungs. And COVID is able to actually attack the lungs because of what's binding to them because of the drugs. And he said, if the government wanted to make any response that saved a population, it would be to teach people how to get off of antihypertensive medications, because if they stopped taking the blood pressure medication and controlled it in natural ways, they wouldn't be as susceptible to morbidity with COVID.
He thinks very deep root cause on how everything is connected. That's why everyone was saying he should write the foreword to Connected, because it's such a similar ethos on how to treat the body and find that holistic way.
Well, and what I love about Zach also is he, during that exact same podcast, and I've heard him so many times, and total fanboy. And of course, at this point, I didn't know him then, but I do now. And obviously I know Del now and stuff, but there was fanboy moment when I interviewed Del on my podcast, because I was like, dude, I'm going to confess, I've been a fan of yours for a while because I've just watched what you've done. And he used to do The Doctors, and I used to work with Travis Stork, if you know Travis from The Doctors.
Absolutely.
I'm like we've overlapped in past lives. And, but with Zach, he's a storyteller.
Yeah.
And his ability to weave a story. And he's like, look, I started my career not knowing what I wanted to do with my life. So I went and, worked on a volunteer team in another country. Mm-hmm. And I ended up working in the midwife channel of an orphanage or something along these lines. And he's just so I was literally watching life begin on a daily basis. And he's like, and then when I decided I wanted to do medicine for the rest of my life, and he's like, I finished school and ended up working in hospice care. And he's like, and then I watched life end. And he's just like, and the one thing that we absolutely forget is that everything that takes place between those two moments is sacred. And he said, and we treat death as if death is this defeat, when in fact, death is a beautiful thing. And he's like, when a child is born into the world, and he's just like, it is a moment where everything feels safe, and then suddenly darkness, and then that darkness is happening, and then there's a light, and you come out into the light, into something new. And he's like, and when a person dies, there's a stillness, and then there's darkness with eyes closed, and then there's a light, and you open up to something new. And he's like, and we don't treat death like a rebirth. We treat death like it's a defeat in life. And just the way he told, I'm like, I'm not even doing it a fraction of the justice. And I was like,
because he understands and respects the body.
Yes.
When we have that as our premises for understanding life itself, the whole way in which you perceive the world changes, and then how you treat yourself and others and what is in our world changes as well. That's what's important to him. That's that connectedness. And, you know, when you come to the topic of storytelling, because storytelling is healing, and
Yes.
it's how we learn. Our, first people have been trying to tell us that for centuries. You know, we can really understand and learn a lot from that. So I think, you know, more people should be telling stories, writing books. There's a library in Denmark. It's a human library, and there are no books in it. And you can book a chair for 30 minutes and sit down and talk to somebody about their story.
that's amazing.
Isn't it?
That's so funny. I absolutely love that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say this, like, it's therapeutic. Think about when when you're in psychological therapy, right? Like, what is it? It's storytelling hour.
Exactly. And listening.
And it's this ancient wisdom that is now showing up in the present. And I've just been in this place where this is happening a lot, where I'm like, wow, that makes sense. Wow, that makes sense. You know, I was just downstairs talking to Dave Korsunski from Heads Up Health, if you know Dave. And he was like, oh, I want to talk to you, you know, like, I want to get you on camera. We're doing this whole thing. Like, what's your favorite biohack recently? And like, but I was just like, honestly, fasting.
Nice.
And I'm like, and part of the reason, like, I just interviewed Ben Azadi, you know, Ben.
Yep.
And
Metabolic health.
yeah. And we were actually having this conversation about fasting. And I'm like, but we can go back to Christian tradition, Jewish tradition, Muslim tradition, you know, Hindu tradition, like whatever ancient religion we want to pull out of the bag. And all of them include fasting as part of their moment of clarity. Like when
But
you're
think
seeking
about it.
answers,
We
fast.
already fast when, like, intuitively, when we're grieving because our body is digesting something else. We fast when we're in love or love-making moments because we're processing something else. So if we are really intuitive with life itself and ourselves, there are going to be moments in life where we're supposed to be fasting and we are naturally fasting.
But the point that we were making, and I agree with you on that it is a natural response to some things, because when we're digesting, we're actually segmenting off portions of our energy for something other than what it needs to be used for. But Ben and I were talking, it was like, but you fast for 24 hours and the response in the brain is almost a nootropic level focus.
Right.
And I'm like, so we fast and then we end up getting a much greater and higher level clarity of cognitive function. Like, is that where our answers are coming from? Because we're just processing higher?
Well, it's so much more than we could ever understand, because, you know, and there apparently are prisons in, like, countries like the Ukraine and stuff where they actually just shackle them down to the floor and fast them. They starve them. And what happens sometimes is parasites die off. And that's what's sometimes programming us as well. So we're having a literal cellular cleanse and maybe an entity cleanse. So there are so many things that we are yet to understand that happen with fasting. When we have a virus, we fast naturally. When babies are teething, they want to fast.
Yeah.
So if you think about how the body is constantly healing, it's actually, there's pain that comes with the reward as well. And that's just life itself. And we take that notion and can apply it everywhere.
Well, so your latest work focus has really been on this idea of conscious connection.
Yes.
And
I like that interpretation.
well, I think that's accurate. No?
No, I like the way you just put it into two words there with, like, word economy. Yeah.
Exactly. Don't waste the words.
Yeah.
But this idea of conscious connection and how human connection actually impacts physical healing, which, again, to your point, like relationships, storytelling.
Yeah.
Like, how does,
Also, this is bringing us into the dating world space again.
true enough. Like, how does all that play in? How would you say that conscious connection, how would you say that this social well-being plays into the physical realm?
And I love this question because I am a romantic at heart as well. I'm a natural Cancerian. I'm obsessed with, setting people up or just
Cancer
love
too.
myself. Oh, yeah, I think we had this conversation. But
you're late in the month.
I'm forgetting my point. Don't distract me.
Sorry. I was going to say you're forgetting your birthday.
July 16.
Yeah, I'm the second.
So I think what I was going to say was that we're so scared of, feeling something or being vulnerable. And, we've been taught to, hide behind something or show the world. Like I had a beautiful, profound moment when I was having some psychology after being diagnosed with a clinical PTSD about 8 years ago. And I don't like diagnosis.
Neither do I.
It's just an opportunity to medicate.
And adopt identity.
Yeah, but at that time it was good for me because the trauma that had happened was so intense that I needed to tap out from the world and work on myself. So having that diagnosis meant that I could get support because I do look like a strong woman, and don't get me wrong, I am, but I needed time.
Yeah.
So anyway, now I forgot what the question was. It was so beautiful though.
I was talking about conscious connection and how do you think that social interaction connects to physical healing?
Right. So it was just so beautiful to have that time out. And having said to, the psychologist, having a realization that you can still fall in love and be with someone whilst you're healing. And so often in life we wait until we have the perfect time or I'm at this perfect space, whether it's weight or mental health or for men it could be a financial position. But we have to remember that just going through life with a person, you learn more about yourself than you also do about them. And so that's a gift as well. And so what I say is like to people, perhaps dive right in, perhaps give it a go. And instead of thinking this relationship failed, because what is it that you both taught each other? I think the most important thing is how you leave a person says a lot about who you are.
I agree with that.
Yeah. And I always like to leave a person better than I found them. And so on that note, there was this hookup culture with, the dating apps coming out, and it really it shocked me. And I was like, I wanted to research. So I researched for 4 years and got on dating apps, researched. But I really just wanted to talk to people and find out what was going on. That's when I wrote that dating book about being safe online. It was called #InstaLovers. It was the most fun I ever had on press tour. But I talked to people and they would say, hey, can we go on a date? And I was like, honey, you're already in the book and we don't need to go on a date, because a lot of them wanted to be in the book. They were like, are you really an author? Because I want to go on a date so that I can be in the book. So I used a lot of their conversations and just put a cowboy emoji over them.
Hilarious.
So then when the book came out, some of them actually contacted me and said, whoa, I really am in the book. But I hid their identity and stuff. You really did write a book about it, they said. But I found that they were all looking for a much deeper connection, is my point. So we went through this phase where, if you like, we were a little bit broken or scared to really connect. But deep down inside, I could tell that what people really wanted was to be respected, to be heard. Because if we go back to storytelling, half the healing is in the hearing. And so people just wanted to feel heard. And, not that there's anything wrong. If you want to go hook up and that's part of your journey, do it safely is going to be my advice as a wellness expert. And make sure you're okay, because you need to feel a level of mutual respect. That's the other thing, to protect yourself in that level. But yeah, it was just interesting to see what kind of hookup culture came about and how I think, if you would like, the pandemic really made us all wake up and realize.
Oh, in so many ways.
From quarantining, we had to really start to get to know each other online because we couldn't see each other. Well, those who chose to obey, and the rules of getting together.
Yeah.
But it really took a shift. And now I see all these men becoming the king and really doing their work. But at the same time, women are shifting their energy as well. So like anything with true science, which is quantum physics, you've got the pendulum that swings really far this way, then it goes the other way, and now hopefully it's coming back to balance, which is where we need to be.
We'll see. I've got a theory on that. It's come up multiple times over the last few days in talking to people, and this idea that I'm sure you've heard the phrase that strong men create good times create weak men, weak men create bad times and bad times create strong men.
Wow.
And it's this circle that continues, this cycle that evolution moves through. Because when people are brought up, in a culture where everything is plentiful, they don't understand the work that goes into it. And my theory right now, and speaking of social connection as well as health connection and full spectrum thinking, my theory in this right now is that we're in a time that bad times is creating great men. And I think I'm super excited about what I'm seeing about young people today.
Okay.
That statistics that I'm seeing in the 20-somethings, like for instance, men, I've said this multiple times over the last couple of days, but statistically the fastest growing group of church attenders are 20-something-year-old men. Mm-hmm. Typically the group that would never step foot in a church is actually the fastest growing population in churches. We're seeing that alcohol consumption is at a 70-year low.
Okay.
Because this generation just isn't interested.
I love it.
And it's like, and I'm just seeing this consciousness, and I think COVID did a lot for that, and I think there's a tailwind, and I think Bobby, I admire Bobby tremendously.
Mm-hmm, my hero.
But at the same time, I'm like, Bobby's also riding a wave. He didn't create the wave. Trump is this picture of masculinity for many people, and it's like, but he too is riding a wave. Like, he got elected. He didn't create it. He got elected because that was already moving. And I think the hard times that we've seen over the last while, particularly since COVID, like, have created people going, okay, like, there's an issue. And I think we're seeing now in the college age crowd, we're seeing what happened because of high school lockdowns. These were the students who did high school online and got isolated and ended up with social deficits and ended up with educational gaps and ended up in all of these things. And now they're having to reintegrate, but they're reintegrating. And I'm actually going to go so far as to say a lot of these students reintegrated because they weren't even being programmed by a school. They actually were spending more time with their families. And we're just seeing, I would almost say, a values shift out of young people. And I think that's why, from a social perspective, we're seeing a group of people that are valuing that type of contact. And we can argue about text messages and TikTok and all the other craziness that young people get involved in. But the reality is they're craving social connection right now.
Of course.
And I think that's part of the reason why we're seeing this flood into healthcare as well.
Okay.
And I'm glad we've got voices like Bobby to call out the BS, but voices like Bobby wouldn't be in the position that he's in if the people didn't respond to it.
Right.
Bobby's followers pushed Trump over the edge in an election.
Yep.
But it was Bobby's alliance that ended up causing it, because Bobby's followers were passionate.
So let me bring something out then. We need to be careful of stories or phrases or whatever that can continue to create more of what we've already got. So if there's something that we all aspire to be or to create or to have a world different, we've got to remember in the work of Dr. Bruce Lipton, who talks about epigenetics, that if you actually claim or proclaim or say something, speaking it into existence, you're actually creating it at this very moment.
Correct.
Rippling across the entire world. So we need to start creating more than we're consuming and creating our own narratives of what we want the world to look like.
100%.
And so right now, anyone that's listening needs to kind of speak into existence their own utopia. That's how we can all contribute, because this is evidence of what you're saying, that Bobby's just following the way in which the world is already moving, and we are all reflections of him.
I don't want to come across as saying that Bobby's following the way the world's moving. I think Bobby's...
He's also a leader, don't get me wrong.
Right. Bobby's aligned with the way the world is moving.
Right. That's a great way of describing it.
It's almost like he's the guy on the surfboard, but the wave is already there.
Yes. So then my point is that we're all a part of the wave.
Yes.
Just like we're all children of God, or we're all one. We're one. This is my point, is that when we realize that we are all connected, That's where the power comes in. And I think what I would like to see, and I think I'm already seeing as a visionary, a new type of government where we are all one and we do all figure it out for ourselves and learn how to coexist. We will always need some kind of leadership, don't get me wrong, but this is very empowering time for us. We've already seen a lot of corruption with the pharmaceutical industries and things like that are being exposed. You know, I wrote in my 10th book, Treasured Chest, Exposing Explants and Empowering You. This is the subject, or it's a conduit for many other subjects around who's really in control and how we can no longer be, whether it's victims of medical gaslighting, people describe it as, or just victims of our genetic predisposition, right? So when we start to realize that we can change things, we can take control, we are in control, this becomes very empowering. So we're in an exciting time right now that we're all living in, where we're witnessing this wave, we're witnessing exceptional leadership, and we're almost wanting to be that. I think the danger is that if we even put these exceptional leaders on a huge pedestal and forget that we have the power too.
Yes.
That's why Maha Action is a really important place to contribute. You know, that if we start to actually take control and do things within our community, we can all contribute to this greater cause.
I agree with you on that. And that is there is something bigger than us that we are connected to. I believe that socially that is a connecting point for us. I agree with that. I agree that Maha itself is a movement, not an organization.
By the people, for the people.
Absolutely. That Maha, this idea of making America healthy again, we should all be behind that. That's not a partisan issue.
And why did we wait for the government to inspire us to do that in the first place?
Which is a little weird, to be
right?
honest. And it's like, I think there's been a push for it, but I think that the thing is that I would say that the current Maha movement it's actually just activating people who already wanted this, but there was no unified voice. And I think now we're just hearing the unified voice of a people who felt suppressed, that now all of a sudden feel like collectively there's enough of us who want this to happen. And now you're seeing the shakeup. And it's almost like a revolution where...
Right. It's a health revolution.
Yeah, you're overthrowing the healthcare system in a weird way.
True.
You know, so it really is...
Because of brave people like RFK Jr.
Correct.
Who's like basically being completely brave and putting himself last.
Absolutely.
And I guess even what I wanted to share was what I love about him is that when we saw him shake hands on stage with Donald Trump and joined forces, it doesn't matter who they are. What it shows is two independent people who showed us what unity looks like.
I agree with that. Those are two of the most strong-willed men alive, and learned how to play together for a common cause.
Yes.
And
if we can look at that, if that's all that picture tells you, then that has a ripple effect as a mirror that we can, but you've got to remember this is perception. How do you perceive anything in the world? Perception is everything. That was the last chapter of my book, Connected. Perception is everything. Because with quantum physics, which is the only true science, there's good, bad, day, night, black, white, pain, pleasure. There's an equal and opposite to everything. But if you are in balance and you see things in a balanced way, you will see things that, yes, this is, a unity, a unification. And how can we mirror that? Because if I say to you, oh, you're just such a beautiful light, it's because it's the light in me that sees the light in you.
Yeah, the energy we emit is the energy we attract.
But we are reflections because we are one. So on that note, that's why it's our duty to be healthy, because that emanates to the rest of the world and we reflect that.
I want to give you a minute to talk about your latest book.
Treasured Chest.
Yes, Treasured Chest. And I've heard you talk about it, and I know it's your story about having breast implants removed. What brings you to that? I mean, obviously I know what brings you to that journey, but in writing a book about it, like, tell that story for us.
Oh my gosh. And you know what? It's the most beautiful story, and it was the hardest story to tell. Like, I cried rivers for 2 years before I had my breast implants removed, because I had to go through the deep shame and forgive myself on why on earth a wellness expert would have done that to herself in the first place. And that, you'll discover, is a very unique reason. And also I couldn't afford the surgery. It's like, it was $14,000 and up, and I needed it immediately. And also at the time, there weren't enough explant surgeons. It was very specific, almost like an oncological type procedure. So the wait list was like between 6 and 12 months long. Couple that with the fact that I was literally slowly dying because 6 surgeons and an MRI said that I was fine, but there was a rupture in the left side exactly to where I was pinpointing it to be. And so medicine isn't a perfect science, and nobody found this hole. They were looking for a traditional hole. In my case, it was a fold that became a weak point, and that's where the hole was. And the professor that removed the implants and the surrounding scar tissue woke me up from the surgery and said, wow, you were right. It was exactly where you were pinpointing to be. And you've taught me a lot today. I'm going to have to go back and check all of my patients. So there's a lot to be said for women's intuition and us teaching also the medical profession that we have intuition on what's really going on with our bodies. So he went and did some new research, some data to support that indeed implants are an inflammatory driver creating a cytokine storm. Doesn't matter whether you've got saline, which create mold, or silicon, which can leach into the body, because even the FDA have announced that silicon isn't inert. It's still a foreign body within the body, which creates a systemic response, like a mast cell activation syndrome. So having that new data was fantastic because we never had that before. So my personal opinion now is that breast implants just are not biocompatible, and it's just a ticking time bomb.
Well, it's an invasive procedure to begin with, but the idea that it's a vanity, it's an elective surgery anyway, save the people who do it because of mastectomies and, breast cancer survivors and so on. So I understand the necessity or the desire at that point. But yeah, I mean, it's a cosmetic surgery for most women.
Which is why I've deep dived into this subject in the book, and I've chosen the word chest on purpose. I haven't chosen boob, tit, breast, jugs, none of that, because that's actually what got us into this mess in the first place.
Yeah.
When a human fetus, a female fetus, is being developed in the womb, the breast tissue is actually immune cells. We are so much more, and we haven't in the Western world understood or given enough respect to the female body. And so it's really a Western world issue, right? Because you see people in beautiful black cultures wearing grass skirts and no tops. Like, it's about context. So for me, it wasn't even about aesthetics, and what is behind the chest is the heart. So that's why I've got my hands on my heart, not on the breasts, and showing the deep scars, because I remember thinking to myself, why have I done this photo? But I hopped out of the shower one time, looked at myself in the mirror and saw the scars and went, whoa, these are my war wounds. And I was like, what am I going to share with the world? Because all women are scared of the big scars that they're going to have. Then they got told to be sold rather into an upselling of a secondary surgery. This is where the forever customer comes into play with this, cosmetic procedure, because these surgeons are like, would you like fries with that, a lift or a fat transfer? And then it becomes not a 2-hour surgery, but potentially a 6-hour surgery. And instead of a $14,000 surgery, it's now a $25,000 surgery. But I went with the one surgeon that didn't talk to me like, you're going to be saggy, you're 50 years old. A surgeon actually told me that. And I was like, how about just getting this out of my body and getting me well? But so, yes, women are really at odds with their integrity on why they did this. Then they look at the, and see, I get tongue-tied because it's still it's a hard subject to talk about.
You still got trauma over that.
I'm still unpacking it, but for others as well. For others that actually are hiding in online subculture, Facebook groups, supporting each other, there's millions of women across the world dying to be well who can't afford the surgery. And I'm telling you, there is a laundry list of symptoms like dry eyes, loss of libido, suicide thoughts, anxiety, depression, inflammation.
And the thing is, like, anytime you take a substance and you put it inside the body, and that can be a fake hip, that can be like
dental implants.
I mean, I just had amalgams removed out of my teeth.
Right.
Literally, I had no idea that I had mercury amalgams from when I was like 14 years old.
Oh.
It's like anytime we put a foreign substance into our body, our bodies are they're programmed to fight against it.
And that's because the way in which the body is designed to heal is through expulsion. So think about, when we cough and sneeze, we're expelling tiny particles right through the air. When we've had like rotten food, it comes out one end or the other. When we have a virus, we sweat and it comes out through the pores of the skin. Rashes, the same thing. So if you actually understand how the body works to heal, then you can work with the body. And so instead of putting cortisone cream on top of the rash and pushing it back in, you address the root cause and go, why am I getting the rash in the first place?
Well, and the idea that I talk about skincare, and it's like anything that's going on with your skin is just data about what's going on the inside. Because skincare itself, like we try to do things to remove skincare symptom, and it's like, okay, you got acne. What's going on?
Yeah.
And it took me a long time because I actually had acne as an adult.
But your skin's fantastic.
Totally. And I can tell you the reason why.
You've got no scarring.
No. But it wasn't like bad pock like acne, but I can tell you what, go buy me a Hershey's bar down at the gift shop, and if I eat it, I will wake up tomorrow with acne.
You got parasites going on then.
No, I think it's just my body's reaction to refined sugar, to be honest with you. Like my body just hates it. So it's like, I just happen to know that if I eat sugar, it will show on my face.
Right.
And that's just...
Your body's so clean, so that's actually a really good response.
My body, right. That's exactly right.
It's not a bad response. And we see that symptom as the big bad wolf instead of going, that symptom is the solution. That's the sign for us.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Like that's exactly it. Like embrace that, because the acne is data. Kind of like if you have pain, you talked about sciatic pain. Like you had sciatic pain, and it's like pain is data. Pain is the body's way of letting you know something's wrong. And if all we're doing is taking the ibuprofen to end the pain, we never solve what's wrong.
Yes.
And it's like, and I think
we're masking symptoms. Yeah.
Right. And to your point about the body's natural response to an invader is expulsion. Agreed. Whether that's through defecation, whether that's through perspiration, whatever. Like the body wants to get rid of the invader.
Expulsion. And so with the breast implants, it's got nowhere to go.
Nowhere.
So that's why you get contracture, and then you get the body slowly starting to shut down. So the natural detoxification pathways don't work the way they're designed to anymore. So the gallbladder, the liver, the digestive system, you get SIBO, gut, small intestinal bowel overgrowth, and everything just starts to shut down. So I experience, this is why the thoughts of suicide creep in for all these breast implant illness patients, because their bodies just are slowly shutting down and you really are dying, which is why you want to die. So that's why it's really sad, and why for me it's really important to continue on with this crusade and help women to join the dots. Because after my surgery, I went on the Today Show and my inbox was just flooded with messages from women saying, oh, you made me realize, because they're being what they call medical gaslighting. The doctors are saying, oh, it's just menopause, or, it's something else, it's autoimmune. But we have got autoimmune disease on the rise.
Well, but the thing is like, you think about you put something into the body that doesn't actually belong there, and eventually the body just gives in and just figures that's normal. And it's kind of like if a country was invaded by another country, it's like everybody doesn't, get their new passports tomorrow, but eventually they just adapt to this foreign thing being normal. And as you're saying, like if there's a foreign substance in your body and your immunity actually just stops fighting, because apparently foreign bodies are just normal in here.
So the body is incredibly adaptive. It's just incredible and miraculous. But then it becomes a point where it cannot adapt any longer. That's when you start shutting down. That's why it's a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
And when it does shut down, you've got so much brain fog and you can't function that you can't even remember what's going on, who's telling, and that's where you feel easily led and medically gaslit. And so the more information we have about this, the more we can help others and hopefully prevent others. There's a group of, mastectomy women who are choosing to embrace their flat after they've read my book and preferring not to reconstruct as a result.
And I'll say this, we talk about conscious connection, and you're clearly connecting with women in a cohesive way, that you're developing a following, if you will, of women who want to hear your story because you've made yourself vulnerable. And I can quote Brene Brown and, the science of vulnerability and so on and so forth. But you've made yourself vulnerable, telling a story through shame, truthfully. And like you said, you spent 2 years and cried rivers about why did I do this? But that's been your response to this. And the truth is like you've made yourself vulnerable, which to people who could share your story, you became accessible.
So one of the reasons why I did it was because of a trauma thing, and I felt like having this cage of this product on top of my chest, which covered my heart, to be honest with you, made me feel more confident in an intimate scenario. So when I had to remove this shield,
your heart was more exposed.
Open. So that's why the rivers came, because I really went from that little girl into that beautiful adult that I always wanted to be.
Wow.
But when women read that, it triggers them, and they have said to me that they realize that they were also in a traumatized situation or had trauma happen to them. And so it's kind of this new #MeToo movement that's developing as they're having these epiphanies. So this is a beautiful evolution of women as well, because they're becoming stronger, but in a soft way. And that's important as well.
I love that.
As long as we can help them to feel safe and loved, we're really just ripping off this Band-Aid and letting them get ready to shed.
Andi, where would women go to become part of your community? How would they get in contact with you?
Yeah, I mean, read the book, and then anyone who does read the book, I would love to have a free initial, coaching session to guide them through, because they would probably really need that. And you can get the book on my website, andilew.com, ANDILEW.
You spell your name. My sister's name is Andi. I told you, and she spells it the exact same way. She's ANDI.
Yeah, you got to get it right. And then LEW, or on Instagram, the same spelling with a Andi.lew. You can slide into my DMs. I won't ghost you.
And all of that information will be right in the show notes beneath this. So go look up Andi Lew. She's a champion for health and wellness, particularly for women, because your story is very relatable to a lot of women who are dealing with the consequences of especially in the breast augmentation world.
I mean, I just want to highlight the fact that there are 2 new cancers coming out in that surrounding scar tissue. It's squamous cell carcinoma and anaplastic large cell lymphoma. It's crucial to get them out, and the surrounding scar tissue, get them sent off to the labs to be tested for these things.
And I would recommend to women to demand that this type of stuff is being done in the proper testing, because the medical community isn't as attuned to this type of stuff as you're saying.
Or they won't send them off because they either don't want the data to support that this is an issue, or
the liability of who actually put in the implants. Yes, we've got to have a standard of care and making sure that we're preventing lawsuits. Guys, check out Andi Lew. She's become a great friend of mine, and I hope she becomes a great friend of yours as well. And I'm excited to see where she goes. Thank you. Welcome. I'm so glad your visa got renewed with our country. Welcome to my country, Andi.
Ooh,
we're so glad to have you here. You've got like the best speaking voice, accent. I love Australian accents.
I feel so loved and needed. Thank you.
You are, absolutely. So I'm so glad to see you around more, and hope to see you soon. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks out in Los Angeles.
Yay.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, for tuning in to Performance Driven Living with the none other than Andi Lew.